I pledge allegiance to the flag
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to call our meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. If you have a cell phone, avoid embarrassment. You may want to silence it. If you need a listening device, see one of our commission staff. And I don't see the...
It's back there. We're good.
Got it? Okay, so there are records, and also those are always available anytime during regular business hours in the county auditor's office. Begin by looking for a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Barr, second by Bender. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have two different meeting minutes to approve. The first one is from October 5th of 2021.
Motion to approve minutes?
Second.
Motion by Heiberger, second by Benega. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then the October 12th special commission meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Again, motion by Heiberger, second by Benega. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Bills to be paid, $4,664,587.14.
Pay the bills.
Second, Benega.
Motion by Barr, second by Benega. Comments?
I left my notes, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but everything seemed in order.
Good enough for me. I've looked at them also. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have numerous reports from Planning Department, Building Permits Report, the Sheriff's Report for September of 21, the Register of Deeds Statement of Revenue for September of 2021, the Minnehaha County 2020 Legislative Audit Report, which we were briefed on a couple of weeks ago, the Auditor's Financial Reports for September 2021, and the Highway Monthly Construction Projects Update. So numerous reports are all in the book and all available if anybody would like to review them. Personnel actions. Look for a motion to approve routine personnel actions.
Motion to approve. Bender?
Second,
Second.
Heiberger.
Motion by Bender, second by Heiberger. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All righty. We have some application, or at least one application for abatement. Go ahead, Chris.
Yep, Chris Lilla, Equalization Office. Yep, we've got one veterans exempt application for RDID 72762 for the 2020 property taxes in the amount of $191.24. This is only for 1 month is why the amount is so light on this one, and we do have the application moving forward for the 21, pay 22. We recommend approval.
A veteran's exemption is permanent, correct?
Permanent and total disabled, yep.
No, I mean, they don't have to reapply
Nope,
for it.
nope.
Okay.
One application and they're on, as long as they stay in that property.
Okay.
I'll
Move
make
for approval.
Second.
By Benega, second by Barth. All those in favor? No, roll call vote.
Benega.
Aye.
Heiberger.
Aye.
Barth.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. Notice and request, we have authorize the auditor to publish notice of request for qualifications and RFQ for auction company services. Anybody briefing on this? Morning, Tyler.
Morning, Tyler Clack, Commission Office. This is the next step in our process to auction off 1900 West Russell Street. Based on some research, we are just moving forward with publishing a request for qualifications to solicit some firms, hopefully, to pursue or to actually hold the auction service. The dates in there, we'll give them about 3 weeks to submit these responses. And then at the November 23rd commission meeting, we will hopefully have some options for you to select from.
Make a motion to approve authorizing the auditor's office to publish notice?
Second.
Motion by Heiberger, second by Barth. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have no planning and zoning notices and no petitions for compromise of lien. This will move us on to our public comment. Is anybody here that would like to address the commission on a non-agenda item? Morning.
Good morning, Jesse Fonkert, 610 Parchi Drive, Hartford, South Dakota. I just want to take a moment to thank the commission and commission staff for all the hard work that went into it, the 2021 Minnehaha County Bus Tour. We appreciate the time spent planning the tour as well as the attendees there and showing you throughout our region. The Sioux Metro Growth Alliance is excited to host it again in 2022. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would just say that I think Jesse did a great job of leading our tour and showed himself to be very professional.
The tour was well worth the 8 hours we spent on the bus and the corners of the county that we had. No, it was 8 hours, 8
Yeah.
o'clock to 4 o'clock, so yeah, it was
good.
it was definitely a quick day and got to see stuff I know I wouldn't have seen had it not been for you, so thank you. All righty. Anybody else here for public comment? If not, move on to our regular business. We have a public hearing to consider declaring the property legally described as the east one quarter of the northeast one quarter, except Covert's addition, section, et cetera, et cetera. Kevin?
Good morning, Kevin Hookman, County Planning Department. This is a request for a public nuisance hearing for the property as described. The address is 25735 459th Avenue, and the property owner is Keith Dement, which is approximately 1.5 miles northwest of Humboldt. In the spring this year, the staff received a complaint about the property having approximately 30 or more cars sitting in the property. Most of them are tipped over and being dismantled. Staff worked with the property owner through the summer with some progress little by little throughout the summer. And finally, but always having a little bit left over. On October 14th, staff took updated photos of the property, and I'll show them here. There's much visible improvement over the property, but it is difficult to see if all the cars and stuff are actually licensed. I'll just go with that, begin with the photos here. Here would be the property. Elongated property in the farm area on the south side of the property. Some aerial photos of the site from the east. And here's some of the original photos taken in the spring. You can see there that the cars tipped on the sides and parts on the property. Through the later spring, summer, August, you can start seeing some of the cleanup. September, there was a little bit more cleanup yet. And then October, here we are. Largely what remains on the site is agricultural related. You can see some ag equipment there. But you can see, for example, that one pickup and some other kind of stuff, I guess. Some stuff, cars in the closer up, you'll see the one is licensed and the other one with the smashed-in hood is not. And then there's a pickup in the other photo on the right. And then there's a van and some tires and other debris right there. But you can see that the rest of the property has been largely cleaned up other than the farm equipment. So I guess I'll just leave it on that photo there. The public nuisance ordinance violation does list any deteriorated, wrecked, dismantled, derelict, or inoperable property in unusable condition in its present state, and which has been left outside of an enclosed permanent structure as part of the public nuisance violations. South Dakota codified law does allow Minnehaha County to declare a public nuisance and allow the county to clean up the property and defray the costs to the property owner as property taxes as a special assessment. So this property has had some consideration or some cleanup. So Minnehaha County Commission may consider the property for property nuisance. And if they do so, they can enact South Dakota Codified Law 21-10-6. And I am here for any questions. I should also point out that I did send out notices to neighbors, and so there may be neighbors here, so we should call for any comments.
Any questions of Kevin? Cindy?
How many acres are in this parcel?
This parcel, I believe there's 20.
And can you elaborate on what you think this, about how much has he cleaned up? 50%, 40%, 10%, 80%?
I would probably closer to the 80, 90%, because you're now down to maybe 3 cars, and then some kind of miscellaneous stuff in the trees there.
So he's
yeah.
made significant.
He has made
obviously,
very significant progress.
improvement. Okay.
Other questions? Commissioner
Mr.
Barr?
Chairman, Kevin, if it's only 20 acres, then it's not zoned ag, is it?
It is still zoned ag, but if it's less than 40
But for
acres in
tax
size,
purposes, it's not ag.
it would be considered, residential property.
Has this property been before the commission before for a similar complaint?
It has not.
It has not, okay. Okay, no other questions? I guess I'd like to give if the landowner is here, Mr. Dement is here, I'd like to give him the opportunity to address the commission about his intents. Good morning.
Morning. It is 30 acres there.
30, and your name, sir?
Keith Demet.
Keith Dement, okay. Would you like to address the commission on your cleanup efforts and what you think it'll take?
I can have it all cleared out of there, but like the van there, we just want to get the motor out of that, and that's done. The pickup in the back has plates on it because the guy that owns that brought me out went and got it licensed and stuff.
Okay. Questions of Mr. Dement?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that you're working on it, and as I look at it, though, I have some concern about chemicals and stuff like that being dumped, especially when the vehicles are on their side or tanks of unknown stuff. Let's get it cleaned up, and I'm willing to, give you some more time, but I know, I hate to say it, but there's going to be snow coming, and then it'll be really hard to clean it up.
Okay. There's no chemicals on
Okay.
there. And all I did, I guess, is where most of the vehicles come from. Is some guy called me in like January or whatever and wanted his whole farm cleaned done up. And at the time, iron was really low. So I just drug it all back to my house, got the precious metals out of them. I just recycled, I guess, is all I did.
Fluids in the radiator, the oil, the gasoline.
Well, the gas tanks you have to remove.
Good.
Gas tanks and batteries you have to remove.
So are you conducting some sort of business off the property then?
I guess I just recycled.
Okay. Dismantling or recycling vehicles?
I just recycled them, because the catalytic converters and stuff in there, I took to a guy and had him, just sold the catalytic converters and stuff.
Okay.
I would-
Commissioner Iberger?
I wouldn't call it significantly a business. It's illegal to run a business like that in the rural county, but if it's just one person that gave him a bunch of junk, I wouldn't say that's a business.
Yeah.
But it is illegal to run that type of a business in the county without proper permitting and stuff, so that's what he's getting at.
Yeah. Other comments or questions? Commissioner Benega, go ahead.
Jean had her hand up, too.
He's really trying to figure out, he's looking at you and using my name, so.
Let's go to the left.
I'm just curious how long you think you would need to get the rest of the vehicles cleaned up
Have it done before December 1st.
before December 1st?
Yeah, there's only 2 without plates on it.
Okay.
That's the same question Commissioner Benning would have asked.
Do we have two different commissioners, or are they the same one?
All right, I'll bring it back.
I'd make a motion to, well, no, sorry, I guess we can't, we have to do
So,
the people.
Mr. Dement, thank you. I do have to see if there's any of your neighbors that would like to make comments. Anybody that would like to speak to this issue? Not seeing anybody get up, I'll look for a motion.
I would make a motion to readdress this the second week of December. Actually, we don't have a commission meeting that week, so it would actually be the third week of December.
Do you want to defer action to December something or another?
Yeah.
Christmas?
We could do it December 7th. That's actually the first Tuesday of
Okay,
December.
that would be great. That'd be my motion, December 7th.
I'll second that.
Motion to defer to December 2nd. Call the roll, please.
7th, I believe. Did you say 7th, Jean?
7th.
7.
You got it? Okay, we're good.
Hiberger,
Aye.
Barr,
Aye.
Bender,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on, we have another public hearing to consider declaring the property legally described as. Go ahead, Kevin.
All right, so Kevin Hookman again. This property is described as the east 245 feet, the south 210 feet, and the southeast quarter of the southeast quarter, except H lots 1, 2, and 3 in section 10 of Burke Township. The address of the property is 46998 246th Street, and the property owner is Ronald and Joan Heggie. There's the location from the Pictometry. This too is also a property that was brought to us in the spring for cars and junk accumulating on the property. This property has had multiple violations and has been in front of the board as recently as 2018. At that time, the public nuisance was declared, and the property owner removed all violating vehicles or put license plates on them. So we did not do any cleanup at that time. Staff reviewed the property throughout the summer, and I'll go through some of those photos here. And most recently on October 14th. You'll see throughout the summer here, May, there isn't a whole lot of changes for the property. Lots of parts. The cars roughly stay in the same places. July, August, some closer up vehicles. This is on the other side of the house. And then here's the October photos. I will point out that in previous nuisance complaints, part of this complaint was that he's storing vehicles in the right-of-way. This time around, he has been keeping his vehicles further back, and without surveying it, I can't tell for sure, but it would appear that he's keeping them out of the right-of-way. But I'll just point out here in this October photo that he did recently add a large tank that's being held up, which I don't know what the use for that would be. But then the vehicles are there. And I'll just show here, you can see that he's put plates on several of those vehicles and recently licensed them, or the one I think has a historical plate on it. And then this would be the other side of his property with boats and cars. And he must have a wood-burning furnace because he has cut a lot of wood for his house. And I guess I'll go back to there. So staff finds that there's still unlicensed and other parts on the property, lots of abandoned property, but I also comment that there's a fence on the property. I did not look behind the fence, and the last time it was kind of what's behind the fence will be kind of reviewed maybe at a later date. The ordinance itself does not have a reason to stay outside of behind the fence. It just says inside of an enclosed building. What's behind the fence may harbor rodents. It may cause environmental damage if there's tanks or other things like that. So that should be a consideration in this discussion as well. We already went through what an abandoned property is and that the state law does allow the county to declare a public nuisance. The Planning and Zoning Department does request that the County Commission declare the property legally described as earlier a public nuisance and enact South Dakota codified law. So is there any questions?
Questions for Kevin? Commissioner Iberger.
Kevin, on some of these pictures, there's a blue line or a red line around the property. I'm just wondering, so is this spilling outside of the property line, or what is the purpose of the line on some of these pictures?
These ones?
Yes.
So I guess from the pictometry views, especially when you go at an angle like this, the drawings of how the line is in real life, where that property line is, and where it shows up in an angled photo doesn't always line up.
So I don't need to look at them and say he's outside the property lines.
Yeah, this is showing he's outside the property lines, but it may or may not be. It would be hard to tell because he's close, but yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions for Kevin?
Kevin, how many of these vehicles are unlicensed, can you tell?
I did not get an exact count, but I would estimate 10 out of the, probably half of the vehicles that are on the property.
Okay.
Is the home occupied?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner
So
Barth.
that would apply also, the registration would, like on boats and trailers, campers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other, one more question,
One more.
Commissioner Bird?
So, we didn't do the cleanup, but it was cleaned up in the last couple of years. How much of this stuff is all of this new since the last time we cleaned this up? We didn't have any pictures from, prior, and I'm just wondering, is all of this stuff new in the last couple of years?
I don't think so. Several of these photos, I'll point out, have some of the blue pickups that he uses regularly. He also uses like a 2-ton kind of truck with a crane on it that has stayed on the property. Some of the tractors and trailers have stayed on the property as well.
What's this zone, Kevin?
It's zoned A1 agriculture.
A1 Ag, okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
So Cindy, the last time it was here, they were parked right up to the corner. And I've driven by it a few times since then, and it's, they're not quite up into the right-of-way at this point.
What kind of business can be conducted on A1 Ag?
Well, a salvage yard is not allowed to be conducted on A1 agriculture. And I guess I would classify this as a salvage yard since he's bringing in multiple vehicles, and repairing either way would not be allowed in A1 agriculture.
So an automotive maintenance, repair, that type of thing?
Correct, yeah, that would not be allowed.
Okay. Any other questions of Kevin? Okay, I'll look, if the property owners are here, I'd welcome them to the podium to address the commission if they wish. Please introduce yourself. No? Okay. Is anybody here that would like to address the commission about this property? All righty. Moving on to the commission action then. Commissioner Benninga, you're first.
I guess it seems like we're doing this about every year, almost. And frankly, if it's getting to be a test, I think the individual is flunked. So I would like to declare this as a public nuisance.
That's a motion. I will second that motion. Bender.
All righty. We have a motion and a second. Additional comments, Commissioner Heiberger.
How far do we want to clean up? I think that needs to be established, since Kevin has talked about this is a big problem, and so how big of a cleanup do we want to do? I think that's important to reflect.
Well, I guess for one thing, I think we need to remove all the unlicensed vehicles. I also think we need to find out what's behind the quote fence. And I don't know what we need legally to be able to do that. Might need a state's attorney's opinion on that. Or Eric?
I'm going to slide it into the policy arena if I give you too much clarity on that answer, but I think you've identified what you're wanting,
Yep.
so that's fine.
Thank you.
So remove any unlicensed vehicles, trailers, boats, and see what other cleanup needs to be done for stuff that's not visible. You know, my personal opinion on this, and I'm just, we're talking about policy here. We have zoning ordinances so people can have a reasonable expectation what's going to occur in their neighborhood. Zone A1 Ag is for, if you had a tractor or, whatever out there that's used for ag, hey, no problem. But if you're conducting a business on a property that's not zoned for business, either you need to get it rezoned or you need to knock it off. And I really don't have a lot of sympathy because, it's the neighbors that put up with this, and we don't go out looking for these problems. Somebody called and complained, and they did because they got tired of it. So I will definitely favor the motion. Commissioner Barth.
I certainly would like, prior to any drastic action, to have Kevin or his agent go out and examine the vehicles and see how many are unregistered. And if we need to have the sheriff go with them, so be it. But I think then we'll have a better idea of how much cleanup needs to be done. And, you know, I've got to say that the planning department takes these complaints and they go on for years and years, correspondence, years and years. And here they are again, and here they come again, and here they come again. Let's find out what's going on there and bring it to a happy end.
And the neighbors are very patient. We've been looking at this for 6 months and trying to work, so
It's
I agree.
shocking when you drive by it. I mean, it just really shows up.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Barth,
Aye.
Bender,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Hiberger,
Aye.
Karski.
Motion carries. And we'll get the pleasure of dealing with the third public hearing to declare a property as a public nuisance. Go ahead.
I guess it's a seasonal thing that work on it all summer. Here we are at the end of summer. So this next item is a public nuisance ordinance violation at 26345 463rd Avenue. The property is owned by Kim Halverson. Legal description is the south half of the northeast quarter, except the west 990 feet in section 9 of Wall Lake Township. This is south of Hartford, about 3 miles. This was a little bit later in the summer, received complaints regarding conditioners and air conditioners and other junk on the property. The dwelling is also has become further hazard since the last time we visited this property because it has burned down further, and we'll see some photos of the charred remains of the dwelling. Since staff has sent the first letter, there's been no noticeable changes to the property. The property has not contacted us at all throughout the summer. And also, since staff sent out notices for this hearing, we have received concerns about multiple campers being occupied on the property. I guess from viewing it, I've only seen possibility of one camper, and maybe there is a couple more. I'm only driving by a couple times summer. The neighbors may know better. So that is definitely a concern of the property, as living in a camper is not allowed in the ordinance, and it's not a safe situation. As I noted, this property has a history of reoccurring nuisances. Most recently, the property was declared public nuisance in 2019. In that time, thankfully, a family member did get a hold of us and clean up the property in the property owner's name, so removed much of the violations. I'll go through some of the photos here. You'll see here, this is our July photos. You'll see the pile of air conditioner units and other appliances. And you can see the remains of the house and a few other vehicles. Again, there is a gate in the front of the fence, so it makes it even difficult to get up closer. So I can't tell how many of those vehicles are being actively used. They do tend to move around, so I think they are being used. Some other August photos, September, no cleanup, and then October, and then further in October, you can see the piles are still there on the property. One of the vehicles have been jacked up, lots of stuff in that one, and then there's a photo of the house close up that is crumbling. Then there's a really good close-up of all the different appliances and other miscellaneous debris of the property. Again, South Dakota codified law does allow the county to declare a public nuisance. And the Planning and Zoning Department does request the Minnehaha County Commission declare the property illegally described as a south half, northeast quarter, except the west 990 feet in Wall Lake Township, a public nuisance, and enact the South Dakota codified law. There has been a lot of interest from the neighbors on this one, especially since the notice has gone out. We've received a lot of calls and questions and concerns. So,
And I'm trying, just full disclosure, I think we received some emails too that we need to make part of the record, or they probably already have been. Is that correct? Not, they will be. So, yeah, I've received at least a few emails anyway on this property, so, okay. Questions for Kevin?
Kevin, is this the same property that had all these air conditioners last time?
Yes, and last time the house was unoccupiable due to a fire, but it was at least standing. So,
And they also had their cattle running loose on the highway,
that has been a common complaint, yes.
which may be why there's a lock on the gate. More later.
Other questions? Again, what's it zoned?
And again, this one is also zoned A1 agriculture.
And is there an occupied or is an occupiable residence on the premise at all?
Not since the fire, no, there's not an occupied residence on the property.
All righty. I don't see any other questions for you, Kevin. I'll give the property owner, if they're present, the opportunity to comment.
Good morning, I'm Don Reichert. We have the property adjacent to Kim's property, and we're to the south of there. We have been there for 34 years. The previous owners kept the place neat. We were here and testified at this hearing a couple of years ago. The house has burned 3 times. The fire department tried to save it every time. They didn't let it burn completely down. His rodeo bulls have been on our property, not recently, but when he first moved there. We've put them in several times when they've been on the highway. The biggest concern is the air conditioning units, which we don't know if they have Freon in them or not. They drain into the slough behind our property, which is U.S. government property. It then drains out of the slough behind us through a drain tile into the wildlife area to the west, ends up in Skunk Creek, which flows through Sioux Falls. So my concern is the air conditioning units that have been dumped there. The day we received the notice of this hearing, we saw Kim drive into his yard with an air conditioning unit in the back of his pickup. We didn't stay around to see if he dumped it. This is a continuing nuisance, and I would encourage the commission to take action on this and take care of it. The one question I have, it's listed as Kim and Victoria Halverson, but in the plat book, it says Halverson Family Trust. So I think we need to take a look at what the property is actually listed under at the Register of Deeds. But I would encourage the commission to go ahead and declare this a public nuisance today so we don't have to keep coming back and look at this. I have talked to 3 or 4 of the neighbors in the area. One is in Manhattan, Kansas. The other one was afraid to come here because of Kim's background. Another one is harvesting, and another one has gone on vacation, but he sent an email to the planning and zoning group here. So those are my comments. Do you have any questions for me as a neighboring property owner?
Questions? Commissioner Barth.
So apparently they have a locked gate there, which causes backup onto 463rd Street. Is this right?
I'm not aware of the lock, but I would concur with him that there is a gate closed. One of the neighbors, the gate was left open one day and his livestock were on the road. He went ahead and put them back in and closed the gate, but apparently there was no lock then, or it hadn't been locked. I'm not aware of the lock on there, but it surely could be.
Thank you.
Commissioner Iberger.
Are you aware, we had heard that there's maybe a lot of cars that sit on that driveway on the roadside of the locked gate and spill out onto the highway. Have you ever seen that?
Say that again?
Cars that are in the driveway that kind of spill out towards the
No,
driveway.
I've
So if
never
you-
seen any out on the driveway.
Okay.
Kim is in there, in and out. I did understand from one of the neighbors that there'd been a camper fire there. There are several campers. I know there were some people living in those a couple of years ago, but I have not seen anyone and can't testify to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Is the property owner present? Would any other neighbors like to address the commission? Any other comments? Turn it to the commission for your action.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little incensed about this one because we had this exact problem with air conditioners piled up there with cattle running loose. And as I look at it, I can't help but wonder what's happening if there's any sewage from that camper. What's happening if there's any chemicals from this crap? What about this gate being locked? Are they cooking meth in that house? Is that why they're having fires? I mean, this needs to be looked into, this needs to be cleaned up, this needs to stop.
Other comments? Commissioner Bender.
Very much for the same reasons, and the last one that we considered due to the fact that this is not the first time that this property has been in front of us, and the ongoing problems and actually apparently very little effort to clean up the property after multiple notices. I would make a motion to declare this a public nuisance and to bring the property back in line with our zoning requirements.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Heiberger.
I will just say that I'm going to support it. I drove by totally not intending to a few weeks ago and was shocked at what a mess it was and came back and reported it to planning, and they said, oh yeah, we're already working on that. So we are trying to take notice of what's going on in our neighborhoods, particularly, you know, the planning with sites that we've had problems in the past, and so it needs to be cleaned up.
So we have a building that's partially burnt. Are we cleanup going to include raising the rest of that residence?
Can we? If we can, I would say we do.
I think we have to, and we need to check for hazardous waste. And, you know, obviously if there's criminal activity, that's something in a different area. But, you know, it could be mental illness, whatever. Let's get this thing taken care of once and for all.
Okay. Can we condemn a building? Have we ever done that, or Kevin?
Our ordinance does not specifically address condemnation of a building, but it does address things that are hazard, and being that this is 90% burned down, I would call this a hazard. It's no longer a structure, it's just hazard.
Okay. Commissioner Heiberger.
If we're going to tear down the rest of the house and there's a huge hole there, does that include that? Can we just fill it in with dirt? I'm just thinking somebody's going to fall in that hole.
I guess that I can ask the contractor that to see what that would entail.
Okay. So clean up, get rid of the air conditioning, get rid of the house, or what's left of it.
What should be our date on this? Same as last time? I mean, obviously, December is coming pretty quick. We have the month of November before then. I'll go with cleaned up by December 7th.
Well,
I don't think that we put a date on cleanup by, not for this. That's, yeah.
and I'm going to maybe ask our legal counsel, if we pass this and could call it a public nuisance, when does that become effective? Does it have the waiting period of 2 weeks, or is it effective immediately?
No, it's effective immediately. Mr. Anderson has a comment.
Commissioner Heiberger is correct. We don't normally put dates on these because we're going to have to, it's going to take a lot of effort on our part to find a contractor that's going to be willing to do this, and winter is coming right along. I mean, it's feasible that we may not be able to get to this till next spring because it's going to take us a while to find someone that's going to tackle this job.
Okay. Well, all righty. So
Do we have a motion?
We have a motion, we have a second, and we're clear that it becomes effective immediately for cleanup, so the wheels will be turning. So depending on how the vote goes, and I'm going to ask you to call the roll.
Bender.
Aye.
Benega.
Aye.
Heiberger.
Aye.
Barth.
Yes.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Kevin. A lot of work, and appreciate, again, the neighbors' patience. Move on to more pleasant stuff. Briefing by the Minnehaha County Water Corporation. Mr. Buss, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Scott Buss with Minnehaha Community Water. I'm the Executive Director and also the representative for Minnehaha County or Community Water to the Lewis and Clark Board. So I wanted to give a quick update on the situation of water supply demand in the county, and kind of talk to you about what we're doing and what we're seeing with all the development interest that's coming to Minnehaha County. I included a couple of letters in the packet that I believe was sent out to the commissioners ahead of time, and I won't go through those in detail, but just hit the highlights. In this summer, we saw our record water pumping day of 6.8 million gallons, and I think it was a combination of early hot weather and field spraying of chemicals. Typically, those two peak demands are spread out, but we saw them both at the same time this year. What we realized is with the amount of water that was used on the peak day, plus what is contracted with the towns that we serve bulk, and those are the 7 that are listed on the screen. And also, we're also working with Big Sioux to get water to Madison until Lewis and Clark can get water directly to Madison. That added a contracted demand of 2.8 million gallons. So we went from there, we went back and looked at what water rights we have available and what supply we have coming from Lewis and Clark, and realized that of the 9.6 million gallons in demand that's contracted, we have 9.2 million in supply. And so that brings up the issue of trying to find water for the big industries that are wanting to site in Minnehaha County. We recently had to send a letter to Sioux Metro saying that we didn't have water for a processor that was looking for an animal slaughter operation that was looking for 1 million gallons a day, expanding to 2 million gallons a day. And part of the problem is that all of the water from the Sioux Falls Airport north in the Big Sioux, Sioux Falls Management Unit is already tied up between Minnehaha Community Water and the city of Sioux Falls. So there's not more water to go get. So we wanted to make the commission aware of that in the planning, just to save the effort of finding the world's best economic development that needs a whole bunch of water and then having to turn them away because of lack of supply. We are doing a number of things to address that. As members of Lewis and Clark, we have 1 million gallons that is coming as part of the expansion from 45 to 60 million gallons a day. That's still several years off. That's something that we're on the hook for. About $6 million is our share of the expansion cost there, and that's totally 100% paid for by the members of Lewis and Clark. There is no federal or state match associated with that. We also have a current project that we have SRF approval for. It's 4 parts. It is 2 water towers, one on the east side of the county and one on the west side of the county. Do you have the map? I think maybe shows that. There you go. So what we're trying to do is we've started on an expansion project within the county. Unfortunately, it doesn't provide more water availability, but it does help us with meeting the demand where the demand is at. And the 4 portions of that project are highlighted in yellow on that map. The first, in the very lower right portion, is a water tower that's going to go on 6 Mile Road. That will help us use our Lewis and Clark demand. It'll help us spread that out over a longer period of time and give us more storage for the growth that we're seeing on the east side of Sioux Falls. North of, or that, up on the top of the sheet on the right-hand side, we're doing a control valve which will allow us to take water both from Lewis and Clark and from our treatment plant and supply the Eros facility and the Eros water tower. Right now, in the peak of the summer, the demand in the east side of the county was more than what could be supplied by Lewis and Clark capacity. So we need to be able to balance that. So those 2 projects will help out the entire east side of the county. On the west side, we're undertaking a project to do, it's 8 miles of 12-inch pipe from Hartford to Humboldt, which will increase the capacity and ability for Humboldt to use more water. It'll increase the pressures out there on the Montrose Road going west, and it will also give us the ability to potentially serve the big dairy that's south of Humboldt. Currently, they're using wells, but we want to get more water out there and make that available. We did send a list of those projects and the costs to Sioux Metro. We understand that there's rescue ARPA money that's come available to the city and the county and also to the state. We did send that, identifying that project as something that might fall in the guidelines of being able to be planned and allocated by 2024 and being built by 2026. Our initial SRF project for that was $7.5 million, and we expect the cost to be come in probably 20% more than that, based on the shortage of PVC pipe and then also the increase in construction costs. In order to get more water to the county, we're also working on a project with Big Sioux Community Water, who is the provider in Moody County and Lake County. And we both see a need with the growth in the two counties and are working on a shared 8 million gallon per day water treatment plant. We're talking about a combined treatment plant that we could both use, the associated wells, pipeline to Lake Madison. They're seeing explosive growth around Lake Madison. We're also seeing, growth of existing dairies in the county, and we know that we need to go further outside of the county to get more water to be able to supply the needs of the folks in Minnehaha County. That project, our portion of that is $100 million. And so we've put that on the state water plan and have done the preliminary engineering report. And from what we've heard, there's the $1.3 billion in ARPA money at the state level that's going to go through the SRF plan. But we've also heard that there's approximately $3 billion in requests for that $1.3 billion. So not surprisingly, everybody's in line to get that money. So I wanted to give everybody an update. I'd open it up for questions if there's information I can provide.
Questions? Commissioner Eberger.
Scott, where did you say they're proposing to put that water treatment plant?
It's going to be north of Del Rapids in the Trent area. We're coming to the end of hopefully getting a contract on that property. There's a limited amount of water in Moody County also, just because of the state only allows people to take out what gets replenished each year through rainfall. And so when that project is done, the water will be pretty well locked up for both Minnehaha County and Moody County, meaning that 20 years down the road, we're going to have to continue to go further and further outside of the county and look at sharing resources and combining those things to get more water to the area.
Commissioner Barth.
So the city of Sioux Falls quit pumping from wells up by the airport because of PFAS, whatever
Yes.
that stuff is. Can that water be used for anything?
I'm not sure what, not human or animal consumption,
Not human or animal.
unfortunately, but
If they used it for irrigation, would that also get into the crop, so to speak?
that's above my pay grade on that one, I'm afraid.
Okay. Basically, that's a contaminant from fire extinguishers, fire foam that the airport has. I think the federal government is willing to compensate for the military part of those things. What about water from the wastewater treatment facility? Can that be somehow treated far enough that the astronauts use it?
Well, I think that's very much the trend that we're seeing in California. I think there's some active projects where cities have a designated potable drinking supply and then an irrigation supply, and the water from that goes through the wastewater plant is put in the dedicated irrigation lines and used for lawn watering, so you're not using potable treated water. That does get obviously treated to drinking water standards and then discharged into the Big Sioux River. So that water becomes available again downstream from Sioux Falls and eventually trickles back into the aquifer and Yeah, I mean, if you think about upstream, the same thing is happening with the city of Del Rapids, the city of Brookings, the city of Madison, and all of those folks are, you know, treating their wastewater, and then it's all going back. It's the circle of life.
Drink more beer.
Other questions? I guess, kind of breaking it down simply, you have roughly 7 million gallons available.
Roughly 9 million available, and demand about equal to that also.
So
The 7 million treatable through the plants and 2 million Lewis and Clark.
Oh, okay. So you had 9, and you're using up. So I mean, we got to be, in my perspective, this as a policymaker, thinking 20 years down the road. And you know, you look at your recent customer inquiries, and they're looking for another 8 million gallons a day. You know, and that's all economic development. We toured a dairy last week. They use 200,000 gallons a day for 5,000 head cattle. So, you know, as we look forward, I think that we really need to have our eye on the ball of water, because without it, it's really going to be hard to move forward. So,
Yeah, a good example of that, we, within the past 5 years, completed a 20-year plan looking at it with the engineers and the growth, and, you know, looking 20 years out, and basically that plan only lasted us about 5 years because of the incredible growth in the area. So the planning cycle keeps getting shorter on top of everything.
I guess going back to the water treatment plant that you're looking at, I mean, is there a timeline? Do you have a calendar for moving that, or is it just kind of, if we could?
Right now, it's full speed ahead, regardless of, you know, what comes through for state funding. We are planning to lock down the property this month. We'll go out and we'll do test drilling. We'll get the water rights done before the first of the year. We should be in the January funding cycle then with the Department of Water and Natural Resources, and find out, you know, if the state is able to give us any cost share. Fortunately, they do look very favorably on two regional systems combining and using resources better that way. And we'll find out in March, and then it'll be on to construction. But we're talking about 48 miles of 16 24-inch pipeline and a treatment plant and 2 very large water towers.
And how many gallons a day will that provide to your system?
It will. Right now, we're still talking about that. Initially, we're looking at 4 for us and 4 million gallons a day for Big Sioux.
Okay.
They may not have quite as much demand as we do, so they're taking a look at that. But anything that they give up, we'll certainly speak up for.
Okay. All righty. Great information.
Thank you. I appreciate your
Scott.
time this
Appreciate
morning.
it very much. All right, we now move on to a presentation by the Interlakes Community Action Partnership, and what I'm assuming is your last appearance, maybe, before the County Commission?
Yes, either that's good for you, maybe, or not.
We will miss you.
Yeah, we will see on that. I am Cindy Dannebring, CEO of Interlakes Community Action Partnership, and thank you so much for allowing us to come and speak with you today. With me is Bonnie Duffy, who is the vice chair of our board of directors, who has been doing yeoman's duty in the search for a new CEO for our agency, and Tammy Denning, the Sioux Falls Community Services Director. In front of you are the information on the services we've provided in Minnehaha County in the last 12 months. Weatherization continues to be not funded as much as we would like it to be, but we're understanding that there is additional funding coming. Just as a side note, in this time of COVID, with all the serious illnesses and deaths that have accompanied it, there has not been a lack of funding for our agency. We have gotten more funding than I can ever remember in the many years I have worked at this agency. Unfortunately, to administer that funding needs staff, and that's where we've struggled, as I think others have as well, in hiring. Hiring has been a challenge for us in the last year and continues to be in all areas of our agency. Our Early Head Start Center is full, and functioning, and we have a waiting list. Number of families we serve in the VITA program continues to increase. We have volunteers now from the University of Sioux Falls assisting us. Last year we did, again, due to COVID, mostly virtual. This year I anticipate we'll do both virtual and in-person. Through Heartland House, Bright Futures, and the ESG programs, we touch the lives of 278 homeless and near homeless families with rental assistance and case management. The waiting list for these programs continues to be there. We have applied for an additional 13, up to 13 families that we'll be able to serve through HUD funding for Heartland House. Minnehaha County has a strong network of nonprofits, as evidenced by the 6,100 referrals we made in the last year. In addition to what's listed on there, Interlakes is also general partner in a couple of tax credits properties here. And in the last year, we just completed the construction of a 46-unit townhome project, 6 buildings at 6th and Bonson. Many of those units were spoken for before it was even finished, and it's running at 99% occupancy all the time. The need for affordable housing in Sioux Falls and the surrounding area continues to be a concern. A few weeks ago, at any one time, we serve 150 families for rental assistance and case management. Of those 150 families, about 49 of them were struggling to find a place to live. Even though there is funding available, affordable housing is a concern. And it's not only Sioux Falls, it can be Del Rapids and Hartford and Humboldt and the surrounding area here. Thought you might be interested in, we hear on the news about the increasing costs of natural gas for this coming heating season. And thinking about our families who are living on limited incomes, I had a conversation with the State Director of Energy Assistance yesterday. He assured me that they, again, have plenty of money to help people as those numbers go up. As the facts that he told me yesterday was that 20% of the people that receive energy assistance, only 20% hit their maximums ever. So there's some room there. Then he said if people start bumping up against that maximum, they will raise those maximums so people are not struggling with their heating costs. And I think that's very worrisome for some of our lower income families, as it is for all households, I think, in our area. Another program we are administering is the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, and we contract with the South Dakota Housing Development Authority for those funds. Started out very COVID-related and has expanded beyond that. Tammy will talk to you a little bit about that program.
Thank you, Cindy.
Good morning, Commission, and unlike Cindy, I will hopefully be here for many years to come, as long as you'll have me back. So, as Cindy said, there is not a shortage of COVID funding over this last year and a half or so, unfortunately, for the many households we served. As you can see, that was sent in. We have, through ERA and some of our own funding, we have assisted approximately 1,900 families with rent, mortgage, and utility assistance. We also have some internal funding. It's called CSBG, which is Community Services Block Grant Funding that only Community Action Partnership agencies receive from the federal government. And so we're able to, based on community needs and what kind of things we see that our clients and our households are asking for, we've also been able to help with some of the things listed, such as mobile home or mobile phone payments, clothing and transportation, food and food vouchers, personal care items such as cleaning, supplies, diapers, wipes, things like that, as well as vehicle payments. And we continue to see a rise and an increase in people calling for those kinds of things as the days and the weeks go on. As Cindy also mentioned, we also contract with South Dakota Housing Development Authority, and so we are processing applications for South Dakota Housing in the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Excuse me. So far, Minnehaha County has had about 2,200 applications just go through the ERA program in 2021, and so you'll notice that that's a lot of applications. And again, you know, hiring staff to process those applications has definitely been a barrier, but we are getting through those applications as quickly as possible. This year, there's two different fundings. One is a ERA 1 and one is an ERA 2. The ERA 1 is the funding where it has to be COVID related. So a household has to have a COVID related event to be eligible for that. And so far this year we've spent, not we, but the state has spent about $6.2 million. For the ERA 2 funding, the state has spent about $4.3 million, and that just has to have the household has to have a financial hardship. It doesn't have to necessarily be COVID related. So you can see the definite amount of spending. There also is a fund for mortgages, but that will end as of December 30th because the funding will be done. And so far this year, $2.1 million has been spent just in 2021. Last year, about $6.1 million was spent in about three months from October through the end of December. So, anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Tammy, do you guys have a definition for affordable housing? Is it $300 a month, $1,300 a month, $3,300 a month?
You know, affordable housing, when we look at that, especially for our families, because although they're receiving rental assistance or tenant-based rental assistance through each of our programs, excuse me, we're also, you know, they can receive that for up to 2 years while they're participating in the program. But we also look at to make sure that, you know, what happens to them after they're done with the program? Are they going to be able to afford this apartment by, you know, an increased income? And so we're definitely looking at, you know, what their potential is for their earnings, what the amount of rent is for that apartment. But affordable, I mean, is going to be different for different people. And like Cindy said, you know, right now we're just not able to, you know, help, you know, find affordable housing for a lot of our families. And some of that is due to, you know, barriers, criminal barriers, credit barriers, but a lot is just because the housing isn't available for them as well. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
What's going on with Heartland House at this point?
You wanna go ahead?
Nice that you asked, Jeff, because as I said, that we have applied for the 13 additional families, and Jeff has been very involved with us in the past when we've done fundraising, as Bonnie has always been the chair of that group working with fundraising, that we may need your help again, because if we receive that HUD funding, we're going to have to get match from somewhere, and that's when we need to have fundraisers. So the program itself is going well. You know, it works to have scattered sites. We used to have the families all in one building or two buildings. We had Heartland House 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. Now they're scattered, so they are amongst the general public, and it seems to work very well for them and their self-sufficiency, not having to move out. When they're finished with the program, they can stay housed in that one place. So the program itself is going well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the only question I have is, part of your presentation is that 16,803 people live below the poverty line. Which, I mean, there's so many definitions of poverty line. Which poverty, is that the federal?
Yeah, that would be 100% federal poverty level.
which is 36,000 or something. What, do you know that number?
I don't know it offhand.
Isn't 4 around 20 something?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
No, around 24,000 for a family of 4.
Oh, ouch, okay. It's a lot of people, okay,
It's a lot of people.
thank you. No other questions? Ladies, thank you very much for the work you do, and happy retirement.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, look for a resolution to rescind Resolution MC 20-64, property tax payment plan for Brian Ray Matthews. And good morning, Ben.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Ben Kite, Minnehaha County Auditor. So, yes, I'm here today to ask for you to approve the rescission of a tax payment plan for Brian Matisse. Back in October of 2020, the Commission approved Resolution MC 20-64 for a tax payment plan for Brian Matisse. That tax payment plan was agreed to by Mr. Matisse, and it called for monthly payments of $637.42 from November of 2020 through October 2022 to cover back taxes, penalties, and interest, totaling $15,298.27 on parcel 059074. The resolution did state that in the event of the owner of record does not pay all those back taxes, penalties, and interests, the county could proceed with our tax deed process. Mr. Matisse has made 3 of the 12 required monthly payments totaling $1,917.94 on the tax payment plan during the time it's been in effect. The auditor's office has had some conversation with Mr. Matisse, and the auditor believes that Mr. Matisse has not demonstrated a willingness to be in compliance with the agreed-upon tax payment plan. Considering Mr. Matisse's violation of the terms of the agreement, along with guidance from the Minnehaha County State's Attorney's Office, we would ask that the tax payment plan be rescinded. Mr. Matisse has been served with the notice of the hearing today on the rescission of the tax payment plan. He was served on October 15th. So I'll take any questions you might have on this request.
Any questions?
Is Mr. Matisse here?
He is not.
Mr. Chairman, one more question. Is there any way to expedite the process, since he's already obviously been in violation of paying his taxes previously, or do we have to go through the long process again to take control of this property?
Yeah, we would have to go through our normal process. We have been informed by Mr. Matisse he's in negotiations to sell this property, so we would expect if that does occur, hopefully for the next month, those taxes would be paid, brought full at that time.
So you mentioned the process. Where does this put us? I mean,
It basically just
all taxes are due.
Yes, right.
Immediately,
so,
and
yeah, so just like any other taxpayer found any tax payment plan agreement, he needs to bring his taxes due. I think he's behind about on the tax payment plan itself about $12,500. There's total due about $20,400. That's outside of that tax payment plan for other years.
Commissioner Eberger.
So if he sells this house in the next month and we've rescinded where does that put it? Do we get the profits and he gets, or I should put it the other way, do we get paid and he gets the profits of whatever that sale house, or do we already own the tax deed and he doesn't get anything?
Yeah, no, we don't own the tax deed, so he would, if he sold the property, he would just be able to pay the back taxes and he would be able to keep the remainder.
I've always been kind of interested in this process, and I know our prior auditor worked with numerous individuals. I've often wondered, I mean, is this the only one we have a problem with, or are there others that we will be seeing?
There are others that you will be seeing in the near future.
Okay. Yes. Good to know.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Aren't there also others, though, that are successfully following their agreement and paying it down?
Yes, so when my time as the auditor, we had 18 tax payment plans when I came in. 6 of those have paid in full since then. I think we have about 4 that are seriously delinquent, probably haven't paid for a year since then. So the remainder, we have people who pay on a regular basis.
All right, so this is a resolution that I need a motion on.
Make a motion to rescind the tax payment plan on this property.
Second.
Second by Barth. Other comments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ben. And moving on to certify the results of the October 4th, 2021 election for the Meadows View Circle Road District.
Yes, so on October 4th of this year, the property owners of Meadowview Circle voted on the question of forming a road district. There are 8 property owners. They were all
Ben, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
It just brought to my attention that we need to do a roll call vote on the last motion, so I apologize. So call the roll on our motion for number 15.
Benega.
Aye.
Heiberger.
Aye.
Barth.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye. Motion carries again. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so yes, there was an election held on October 4th by the property owners of the Meadowview Circle road to form a road district. There are 8 property owners in this area. 8 of those they participated in the election. The results were 4 in favor of forming the road district and 4 against forming the road district. So consistent with state statute, there was no majority to vote. No majority was obtained, so the request for the road district failed. So, you know, I've given you copies of the tally sheets. Obviously, a small election, but yeah, evenly split. It was good democracy in action, I guess, on a small scale.
Motion
Every
to approve-
vote counts.
Motion to approve the canvas.
Second.
Second by Barth. Call the roll.
Heiberger. Aye. Barth.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye.
Did you use a computer to count the votes?
Moving on. Authorize the chair to sign a joint powers agreement between the South Dakota Department of Veterans Affairs, Minnehaha County, and Mapleton Township for improvements to the Slip Up Creek Road and 477th Avenue, our Veterans Cemetery.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Commissioners. Steve Groen, Highway Superintendent. As many of you are aware, the 2021 legislature authorized $1.5 million to the South Dakota Department of Veterans Affairs to upgrade Slip Up Creek Road between County Road 125 and the entrance to the new Veterans Cemetery. Today I'm asking authorization for the chairperson to sign a joint powers agreement between Veterans Affairs, Minnehaha County, and Mapleton Township to hire a consultant to design and then for Veterans Affairs to construct the new roadway. We will be involved in the design process. The road will be built to Minnehaha standards. We will be able to observe construction, make sure it's to our standards, and upon completion of the project, the roadway will become a county road and we will own and maintain it. It was a long process. You and I were involved in many meetings, and I think we have a good agreement.
Can we sell naming rights to this county road, or what's our?
I'll leave that up to the board.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Bender.
Well, I just want to thank the Highway Department and particularly Commissioner Karski for his leadership on this. This is a great project for the citizens of Minnehaha County and for the folks who are utilizing, for our veterans and their families who are utilizing that cemetery. All good things require a lot of effort sometimes, and this certainly required a lot of effort, leadership from our local legislators. But I think we've got a good agreement, and I think that this will be a great end result.
As usual, our embedded state's attorney, Judy, did a fantastic job.
Excellent. This has been a process, no doubt.
I'm pretty excited about getting this done too. And does the road get cared for just beyond the entrance to the cemetery?
There'll be a large round area, more or less, not a roundabout, but a large area where snowplows will have room to be able to turn around, so that'll go just past it. The road to the north is not part of this agreement.
Right, okay. How about curb and gutter, lighting, that kind of stuff?
That'll be part of the project scoping.
Great.
You know, people making this final journey, it would be nice if it was nice.
I think the funeral homes would appreciate not having to wash their cars after every trip out there too, so, yeah.
The first half mile isn't too bad.
All righty. So I'd look for a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Barr, second by Benning.
Heiberger.
By Heiberger. Doesn't start with a B. I'll call the roll, please.
Barth.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Benega. Yes. Heiberger.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Steve.
Steve. Thank Judy, too. All right, consider a motion to approve the removal of item 3A1 under the Section 6 Medical Assistance of the Minnehaha County Poor Relief Guidelines. Anybody here to present on this? Carrie's here? Okay.
Me.
Oh,
He's hiding
Jamie's here, okay.
in the overflow room.
Morning.
Good morning, Jamie Phelps, Human Services. So this section deals with medical pre-authorization. So if somebody wanted to have, see if we could provide assistance with a surgery or some type of a medical procedure ahead of time that was pre-scheduled, you know. Under our current guidelines, we allow for the emergency admits, and doesn't really cover really well that type of a thing. So when we had counsel from the County State's Attorney's Office that recommended that we remove that at this point because under state statute, counties are not required to provide the pre-authorization or the remedial medical services to individuals. So the recommendation was to remove that out of there at this point. And if we look at history, you know, you go way back. It predates me prior to when I came to the county, but at some point, the folks that ran the office thought there was a need for that, and it was important to do that at the time. But as time has gone on, over time, we've realized that when we see these types of things, and we have paid a few of them from time to time, but when we see these, for the most part, the true emergent ones, we end up seeing those on the back half anyways, after the fact, after they've had a surgery and then we know for sure, yeah, it really was emergent, and we can have better access to the medical records and determine whether or not they were eligible at that time during the emergency and that kind of a thing. So it's more difficult to do on the front end when you don't have all that stuff, you know. Mm-hmm. Not to mention that we really don't have adequate guidelines to define all of that at this point. We realized after we had the council review those and stuff. And so, not to say that we couldn't do that in the future at some point, because there is a statute, 2813-27-2, that says that counties may, if they choose to do so, provide for the medical and remedial services in addition to emergency hospital admits. But we'd have to come up with, if we seen a need for that in the future, we'd have to meet and establish detailed guidelines that explain the scope of those services, eligibility criteria for those, and the payments for those and whatnot. So, and it's just not there right now. So the best thing to do from our council's point of view, legal standpoint, was to remove that at this point, especially being that when we see majority of these on the back end anyways, after the fact, after a surgery's been done and that kind of a thing, and they've been in the hospital. So we receive it as a hospital admit at that point anyways then, and we're in a much better position to handle it then and determine eligibility and have medical records reviewed. You know, when we have the medical records reviewed and pull all those medical records, it takes a week or two, you know, so typically that's why, you know, you'll review it and then it's like, okay, it's already done, you know. And if it's not done yet, then it probably wasn't emergent. It was scheduled so far, you know. So,
questions of Jamie?
I would just make a motion to remove that pre-authorization from our guidelines in the Human Services.
I'll second that, but I have a question or two.
Please, Commissioner.
So Jamie, what happens if it's, if they went ahead with the procedure and it's not something, I mean, I'm guessing that if I needed my extra 3 chins removed, it wouldn't be covered by
Cosmetic.
the county. You agree with that, huh? 3
Yeah,
chins?
yeah. No. Yeah, so in the past, we've looked at it as, you know, it wasn't pre-authorized.
Yeah.
And it's not emergent. After it's reviewed, it wasn't a medical necessity, it wasn't life-threatening, so therefore it'd be denied, you know? But it's difficult to determine between one as opposed to another what would be emergent before the fact, you know? It's difficult, it gets sticky. But after it's happened, you know, well, yeah, I mean, and they've been able to see a specialist, they've been able to get in and do these things without a decision ahead of time anyway, in all these emergency cases. So it's not like they're not able to do it, you know, or get a diagnosis and that kind of a thing. But like I said, we could do, it doesn't allow for counties to do this. None of the counties have done this except for us in the past in South Dakota, but it would allow us, that one statute I brought up, the 2813-27-2 would allow us to provide for those remedial services if we see the need in the future to do so. But like I said, we would have to come up with more detailed and defined scope of those remedial services, as well as the eligibility criteria for and the payments of and stuff. And it's just not in there right now. Right now, it's set up to deal with those emergency hospital admits, which is required by statute, and it's required that counties handle those if an individual's eligible and is uninsured, that we pay those at Medicaid rates or the cost to ratio, the lower of the two.
Just so I understand what I'm voting on, my experience with pre-authorizations is, you know, doctor says you need this, and the insurance company needs to give approval for that. So, I mean, the pre-authorization is between a medical provider and the payer, basically. We're the payer, so we're pre-authorizing ourselves to do this? Is that the gist of what this is?
Uninsured.
For somebody who's uninsured, yeah, and doesn't have the medical insurance.
Okay.
View it that way because we're putting ourselves in a position to where we're kind of
we're the payer.
Insured, yeah.
Yeah. Commissioner.
I had a long talk with Carrie about this and some emails, and like Jamie said, our state's attorney has reviewed these, not this one. What's his name?
Mike Thompson.
Mike Thompson has been through this. We were not using this. This is not something we need to do. The evidence comes out after the procedures, and so it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it wasn't really used anyway. So take it out at this point.
All righty. So we have a motion with a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, authorize chair to sign amendment number 2 to the contract with JLG Architect for the Extension Administration remodel. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning, Carol Muller, Commission Office. Before you today is a request to authorize the chairperson to sign an amendment to the contract with JLG Architect for the Extension Administration building remodel. You heard at the building committee the last time we met that this is an old building. It's a historic building, and it's our building that we're going to have around for a very long period of time. As we've dug into it, we've come to recognize that there's challenges with historic buildings, and we want to make sure that we're doing things right in controlling moisture. So we've dug deeper into things. People may notice that there's new windows, new roofs, just lots of things that we're taking and doing. So this is a bill, an amendment for $15,000. Part of it is directly to JLG, part of it JLG will pay out Structural Engineering Associates and Pi Consulting out of Minneapolis that provided a level of expertise for us.
And there you have it, Commissioner Bender.
So we've been working on this issue. We've got a wonderful historic building that has all of the challenges that very old buildings have, and we're trying to hit the sweet spot between preserving that building and making it as usable as possible. So there may be more to come on this, but we've been working hard. We've had several meetings where we've been addressing this issue. unfortunately slowed down our construction over there a little bit, but we've gotten really great input from these additional experts, and so I think that this is, I'm fully supportive of paying this. It was money well spent.
Move for approval, Benninga.
Second.
Second by Barth. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Liaison reports. Anybody been active outside of these meetings? Commissioner Heiberger.
I have one. We had our juvenile policy group meeting last week. And just, it was the Zoom call, which is a little bit different to do when you've got just about 20 people on that call. We were basically just talking about some of the positives in what some of the needs are or gaps in our services. We did talk more specifically about the diversion program, and some of the data I just wanted to share with you. In 2017, in the youth diversion program, we had 347 participants, and at that time, 178 of them were unsuccessful. In 2020, we had 363 participants, so just about a little bit more, but we only had 6 unsuccessful diversion participants, which is a huge plus for us. And with that, the state reimburses for successful diversions, and so we received $80,000, which goes towards paying for that diversion officer, which is housed in the state's attorney's office. We're also looking into, the direction from the group was, okay, what type of diversions do we have in Minnehaha County? What gaps are we missing in our diversion system? Pennington County evidently has quite a few different types of diversions for youth that we do not have, so we're going to be looking at what they have and how we can continue to build our services outside. LSS was also discussing training for the truancy programming. The school districts deal a lot with truancy, and I think with COVID, they saw an escalation, a little bit of that, and it's hard to bring that back around when kids are used to not being in school now. And so LSS is looking at some grant possibilities to work through that. So more to come. Thanks.
All righty. Commissioner Bender.
Just a couple things kind of to piggyback a little bit on the presentation we saw earlier from Interlakes. The Accessible Housing Advisory Board has been holding a couple of listening sessions. We had one last week. There's another one scheduled tomorrow morning. I've invited a number of stakeholders from the community to talk about affordable housing issues, and had people there from the construction industry and kind of the whole continuum of folks that are involved in that area. Lots of great discussions. You know, most things you can talk a lot, and then it ultimately comes down to money and how do you get resources, and how do you allocate those resources in a way that most moves the needle in trying to provide accessible housing. We all know that it's a problem. The solutions are a little more elusive, but it was a great discussion, and once the second listening session is held, we're going to come back together and try to set up some parameters for how that group allocates the funds that we have the ability to influence. And so that's been really good. Another update on the study on the software for the state's attorney's office. We did receive some preliminary parameters from Barry Dunn as to what they would expect a software package, a prosecution software package to include, and then we hope to get a report out from them about how the 2 different software packages that we're looking at kind of measure up on that scale of those criteria. I think that will be Friday, and then we're going to, regroup and try to come up with some sort of recommendation to bring forward to this group. There's a few other issues we're still trying to work through, like storage of video and some things like that. And then the last thing is just I want to thank the sheriff's office. The sheriff has agreed to be the point person. We've been kicking around how to best handle event permitting out in the county, and the sheriff has agreed, and I think that's kind of how the process has worked for the sheriff's office to take the initial contact there and then reach out, and they'll contact highway if they're using county highway roads and there's anything that the highway department needs to do about signage. But it ended up being a pretty sensible approach and not a 40-page ordinance, so I'm very appreciative of that process as well.
Excellent.
I'm going to give you one more, Dean, if you don't mind.
Please.
And that is, I got an email from Human Services, too, that they had put together a group of stakeholders that went down to some of the parks that are used by homeless people and interviewed people down there. They felt it was very successful. They actually were able to get 2 people out of that group that they lined up with jobs. They said, obviously, a lot of data is collected, and they intend to get back together and see how can they fill some of those gaps. I'll have Carrie maybe write you up a quick note and email it to you so you get a little bit better idea of what they did. But they're pretty happy with the results of their interviews and had good participation of those people that were there telling them what the problems were. Some of them just didn't have affordable housing. So it was good.
I'm gonna,
Mr. Chairman?
Go
We
ahead.
were all there, but when we did the bus tour, we got an earful about the lack of drinking water or whatever in the county. But we also got a proposition from western communities, western Minnehaha County communities, about doing their own standalone sewage treatment facility. And it seems like everyone wants just a few tens of millions of dollars from the county. And certainly they're worthy projects, and we should consider them at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and that's why we're putting together our list. So, as Commissioner Bender said, I had some interaction with the sheriff in the must have been last week. I'm trying to remember, time gets away from me, but regarding concerns about involuntary commitments, emergency commitments, capacity of the link, and we had a well over an hour-long meeting, Zoom meeting with the executive director of the link, the staff of the link, the sheriff's department, some of his top people, and I think we came to a resolution. In fact, I got an email today about what's going to be done and saving beds for emergency commitments and withdrawal management. So just hats off to everybody, keeping the lines of communications open and talking, and for the link and their staff to really, again, rise up and say we can make this work to keep people on IVCs out of jail, basically, where they really don't belong for the most part. So just a lot of extra work that goes on behind the scenes and talking and communication. So thank you to everybody on that. Any new business? Any old business? And we have no executive session, so I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.